who thought that we were going to be changing houses or moving houses have decided now that we're happy where we are, that we really like our house. And I go to talk to a lot of people who love their home, and they always thought they wanted to move somewhere else, and then they realized that that was not going to be a reality. And so they decided that, you know, I really like where I live, I want to make changes with my home, I want a new kitchen, whatever it is, and at the same time they're developing these ideas for their landscape. And I think one of the good parts at this point, in order to get your budget worked out, is decide what parts need a professional. Sometimes it's actually an architect who needs to address some of the architectural elements of your home and how they relate to the exterior. One of the things that I did at my place was to open up all the bedrooms with sliding glass doors on the patio. And it made it so much nicer for those extra 2 bedrooms to be able to open up and go out, plus have a full sheet of glass. For some people, they've got sliding glass doors and they want to put in French doors. So that's why I'm saying at this point, I think you have to decide if you need a professional or if these are things that you understand and that you're going to be able to work on yourself. One of the hard parts is evaluating your current landscape. And I think the first thing is to try to find a scale drawing of your property and preferably your home if you can find it on the same sheet. The best place to find that is in your closing papers when you bought your home, because usually there's a survey in there and it indicates in the survey gives you sort of a guideline of what all you can do with your home and what you can do with your property. Normally, it'll show you where there are any easements that you can't build in. And by building, I mean that actually is a structure. It doesn't necessarily mean not putting any landscape in. For some people who live in some of the newer areas, the back 20 feet or 10 feet of their property is actually an easement that may or may not be opened up or used in the future. And so when you're developing your landscape, you have to sort of know that. One of the projects that we looked at this week was a property in which about a third of the back of the yard showed that there was an easement for drainage. And so what that means basically is that you can't change the elevation of a lot, and you can't build any structures in there, but you can build a pool, you can build a play area, you can put up play equipment, you can do anything like that, you just can't put a permanent structure there as far as a building is concerned. It also will show you usually where your sewer or septic line is, what the setback line is if you want to add on to your home, make changes with your home. All these are usually found on your survey. Some of you who built homes and actually had a designer or an architect create the plan for your home, usually the first sheet in your roll has a site plan. And that site plan normally has all that same information on it. So if you can't find the survey, then you can go back and look in your set of plans. If you have a set of drawings, then that frequently is on there. So locating the scale drawing of your property is kind of a first step in evaluating the landscape. And then I think you have to be aware of the utilities. It's very important. One of the interesting things, and I keep going back to my landscape because I can talk about it and not get in trouble with any of my clients' friends who might be here, but the last day that we were remodeling my landscape, they hit a big kind of concrete, round concrete piece that was in the ground, and they called me over there, and I went over there and we pulled it off, and it was a septic tank. I thought, gosh, you know, back in the day when this house was built in 1960, they built a lot of septic tanks out here. I said, just get some dirt and fill it in. And about that time, my plumber came out and said, Mr. Rogers, I just flushed one of the toilets and it's coming into your septic tank. And even though your sales documents say that you had a connection to the septic system, sewer system, you actually have a septic tank. So it's quite interesting how that all evolved. And like I said, my house had not been lived in for 2 years. The man wasn't alive anymore who owned the house, so nobody really knew anything about it. So I think when you start looking through the information normally on your survey, that information is generally speaking on the survey. Somehow it had not gotten onto my survey, so I'm glad we didn't cave it in. Recognize the orientation of your residence. Some of you love the sun, and some of us have had enough sun over the years that we don't need that anymore. And so when you start thinking about where you want to live, some of us are at home early in the day. Sometimes, most of us are really at home more in the evening, and that's more the time when we'd be outside. And so thinking about that, think about the west sun, the morning sun, think about the wind and the flow of air into your space so that you can enjoy the outdoor space when you're out there. One of the big things is determining the governing restrictions. And once you've gotten your plot plan, there may be some notes on the plot plan or on the survey that are actually telling you information about what you can and can't do with your property. Like one of them may say that if you have a homeowners association, you're responsible for turning any plan you have into a homeowners association and get approval of your plan, or whatever your plans are. You don't have to necessarily have a drawing of it always, but I'm planning on putting in a 4-car parking area in my front yard. Not every governing entity will allow you to do that anymore, because there's certain coverages that you can do, and especially a lot of the developments that are out north, they don't want any more coverage than the houses and the driveways that are already there. I had one client that I visited with recently. They could not build a full-size pool on their property because it was too much impervious cover for how much they already had on their property, and they didn't know that when they bought their house. So if you're buying a new house in one of the areas that involve the aquifer recharge zone, it'd be very important for you to have an understanding with the person, not only that you're buying the house from, because frequently they don't know, but with the people who are representing the subdivision, to know what you'll be able to do for the long term with your property. So also, in some cases, you need to have a permit to work on your property, and it's generally speaking easier for a homeowner to get a permit than it is for a contractor. A homeowner can go down there, and you're one of the people that are paying for those guys to work, and so they generally they still want it to follow the guideline, but it's a little bit easier usually for you to get a permit. So just remember, if you start any projects that aren't just planting projects or any projects that involve hardscape or changing up your driveway, big projects like that, that you check into the governing restrictions. One of the pictures that I wanted to bring today, and in the later presentation, which somehow got dropped off last night, but was a home in the subdivision where I live, where a house had been constructed for a long time, and there was an addition put onto it, but when they did, they trapped all the water in the front of the house that normally would go around into the back, and the entire new part to the home that was built has completely shifted and has pulled away from the house. So in thinking about landscaping and thinking about your home, drainage is always one of the most important considerations. During this extreme drought period that we had, some of our clients do not like to have irrigation, or do not like to use water to irrigate their gardens. And for those clients, we recommended that they get a drip line and put a drip line around the foundation of their home, because the soil dried out so much, and if they're in expansive areas, it started affecting different parts of their home and the slab of their home. And so when you think about drainage, you also have to think about the kind of soil that you're in, and be sure that you're approaching and making sure that the water is getting away from your home, but also making sure that there's a consistent moisture level all the time around the exterior of your home if you live in a place that has expansive soils. Some of you live out north. Your house is built down into the rocks of the hill country, and it's not really as big of a worry.